If you watch the news recently, you might think the shelves in all our stores are empty across the country, that parents won't be able to get presents for their children on holidays this holiday season. But here's the deal. For the vast majority of the country, that's not what's happening. Because of the actions the administration has taken in partnership with business and labor, retailers and grocery stores, freight movers and railroads, and those shelves are going to be stocked.
Today, President Joe Biden announced several new White House steps to ease supply chain issues. These come after a bunch of stuff they did weeks ago. Today, they announced eliminating certain kinds of port fees, expanding flexibility on truck driver hours. And to be clear, the supply chain really has been a big problem. It's been a very weird situation. You might remember this video from the Port of Los Angeles in October. Dozens of container ships idled out in the water because there was so much congestion, they couldn't come on and offload. And then there was containers sitting there that they couldn't get on trucks. So in October, Biden pledged his administration would focus their resources on easing some of these backlogs. And I think at the time, a lot of people thought, well, this is just symbolism. It's got to look like you're doing something. But it seems to maybe have worked. I mean, according to the White House, the number of long-dwelling shipping containers sitting on docks is down 41% since November 1st. Retail inventories are up nearly 3% from this same time last year. And it's not just the White House. Walmart's CEO has said he feels optimistic about his company's inventory headed into the holidays. Black Friday sales were up nearly 30% this year. And on top of that, today, the payroll company ADP announced that private payrolls grew in November by 534,000 jobs, a third straight month of solid job growth in the private sector from their data. And look, you know, it's often the case in news, there's an expression, we don't cover the planes that land, right? When things go well or things are working, that's not news. But it really was news when everything was screwed up a month ago. And right now, there are pretty good reasons to feel like we're on a much better path, and the economy you can feel pretty optimistic about. Betsy Stevenson's a labor economist who served on the Council of Economic Advisors from 2013 to 2015 under President Obama. She's also a professor of public policy and economics at the University of Michigan. And Betsy, I got to say, you know, I think the supply chain stuff always struck me as not necessarily under the president's control that much, A. B, made a fair amount of sense. It's just been, all this has been so weird. I compared it to like when a parking lot lets out after like a football game, right? And everyone wants to go, and like you sit there in the parking lot, and it's frustrating, but it's like there's just too many people for the amount of space. But it also seems like whatever they've done, maybe it's the private sector, maybe it's government, it has gotten appreciably better.
It's definitely getting a lot better. But, you know, it is some turbulent times. There were a lot of companies that made a bunch of stuff that they were expecting us to buy in 2020, and then we didn't end up buying it, right? So prices fell like crazy. We didn't all get together for Thanksgiving of 2020, and we saw prices coming down because people couldn't sell their stuff. So then they thought, oh, I got burned in 2020. How much do I really need to supply for 2021? That's been part of the problem. And yet we're all like, oh my God, we've been waiting so long to get back out there. And so demand is even higher than anyone expected. You know, there's a game right now where sellers are having to figure out where we as consumers are going to be, and they got to meet that demand before we actually show them what it is. So it's a guessing game. And that's one of the reasons why we get a lot of these mix-ups between supply and demand. We see this going on right now with oil prices, where the price at the pump is still high, but a bunch of oil companies are really afraid that the new variant of COVID is going to cause oil prices to collapse in the future. So while we're paying high prices at the pump, prices are collapsing in futures markets.
Yes, I saw that today. And I mean, that's the other kind of irony here. You know, Jason Furman, who I know you've worked with, an economist, he was in the Obama administration. You served in the Obama administration as an economist. You know, he had this tweet a while ago about some of the supply chain issues and inflation, saying that he's something like, these are good problems to have. And what he meant by that is these are the knock-on effects of an economy that's got robust demand coming back, people with some disposable income. We're seeing wages rising at the bottom 70% of the labor market, and a bunch of conservatives jumped on him like, you think these are good problems. But the flip of that is like, right, if there's another terrible new variant, like you can have cheap oil and cheap airfare, cheap hotels, lots of cheap stuff if everything shuts down again, but I'd rather have this than that.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. That the reason that we've seen some inflationary pressure which the Federal Reserve was calling transitory, and now they want to back away from that word, although the ECB in Europe is still referring to it as transitory. We call it transitory because we think the inflationary pressures are going to go away as supply meets demand. What happened was the economy came back stronger, faster than people expected, and
Yes.
as a result, demand got ahead of supply.
Yeah, and look at the Eurozone. I mean, this is the inflation in the Eurozone where they're setting historic rates of inflation, 4.9% November 2021. That's not the US Fed, and that is not Joe Biden who is doing that. That is the fact that there are big structural factors at play in a once-in-a-century pandemic recovery. And I do think that, like, the message for the White House is steer the ship. Steer the ship through this. And the only way out is through. You want an economy, a virus that's suppressed, an economy that's roaring by summer of next year.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that frustrates you the most is people looking at the kind of support that the administration's given the economy with, the stimulus bill in March of this year.
Yeah.
And, I think that kind of stuff is actually why we had such strong growth. It's not the cause of all our inflationary pressure. It's actually the cause of our strong economic growth. And I'm really grateful that it was there to support families when they needed it.
Betsy Stevenson, thank you very much. That is all in on this Wednesday night.